Because nowadays to be relevant, no matter what you're doing, even if you're a chef or a doctor, you need to have social media presence.
Yeah.
Instagram is the new LinkedIn. People are okay to do free stuff nowadays, and it is affecting us.
Same brands that are actually not paying in India at all in the luxury space do pay influencers in the West though.
You want the job done, then you have to pay for it. You're compared to a Bollywood person, because of course Bollywood is king in India. Do you want the views or not?
I literally was having a conversation with someone who is sitting at maybe 4 or 5 times my follower count on Instagram the other day, and we realized that we charge the same.
Well, I have a very strong and very strict rule.
Taking money from the men in our life always.
I don't
Pick
think
one
there's
thing.
anything known as overpaid.
Do you feel like the perks in our job outweigh the pits of the job? Hi, and welcome to The Real Deal with me, Anam C. In today's episode, we're going to chat with a content creator and fashion brand founder, someone who I have so much love and respect for, Juhi Godambe Jain. Juhi has built a community full of fashion and luxury enthusiasts, and I love that we've talked about her decade-long career, things that have changed over the past decade, things that she's loved, things that she's hated, and some things that she would love to change. Today, you're going to hear about things from her lens, not just as a creator, but also as a brand founder. I'm very excited for you to hear things from this very insightful conversation. So let's get started. Hi, Juhi. Welcome to The Real Deal.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. I wanted to know if you remember when we first met.
Of course.
You do?
You know, that was my first ever project that I didn't even know that. Funny story. So I did that, and I was so excited that I got an opportunity to do something in that space, and I didn't even know I was going to get paid for it.
What?
I never asked for the money, and they're like, "Oh, don't you want your check?" I'm like, "Oh."
So I was talking to someone the other day and they said, how long have you known Juhi?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to jog my memory.
Yeah.
And then I put it down in my notes.
Yeah.
2015.
Yeah.
So
Literally
Fashion
a
Week,
decade.
I have to tell you how this conversation went.
Yeah.
It was a Delhi-based content platform, if I remember correctly.
Ask something. Ask why.
something.
Ask me something. I don't know. Yeah.
I can't remember the name, but I know
Yeah.
they don't exist anymore,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah.
And they said, this is what you have to do. And there was a photographer that was assigned to me. And I said, this is a lot of work
Yeah.
for one person.
Yeah.
And they said, there's this new girl who's just started and she's going to be there and you'll just have to show her the ropes. Next day, they asked me how was she. I said, I didn't have to show her any ropes.
Yeah.
She knew exactly what to do.
I was just literally following what Anam was doing, and I was
No.
just like, oh my God, this girl knows her shit.
You knew everything.
I was just following you around in the room, and I'm like, okay, this is.
I promise you, I remember
And you know
it
what?
completely
What
different.
stood out for me was the confidence, the way, because when I started out, I was a very shy and timid girl. So to talk to a stranger was the most scariest thing ever, and your confidence really made me feel like, wow, I wanna do that.
No, but Juhi, the version I have of this in my head is that you knew exactly what to do from the get-go. Because I remember second day they checked in on me. Only one person was in Bombay for Fashion Week from their team. Apart from us,
Yeah,
we were technically their
yeah.
team for that season. And I said, I don't need help her at all. She knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah.
I literally am just doing my own stuff and she's doing her stuff
Yeah.
and she's fab. And they were like, oh, cool.
They were like, okay,
great.
cool.
And I
Job's
was
done.
in love because I was like,
Yeah.
I get to do...
Good to know. I was very intimidated by you. I have to say, yeah, because I was just like, oh my God, that confidence.
You're very, I don't know if that's a good thing actually.
No, but in a good way, because I was just kind of watching how it's all done, because it was my first time on the job,
Yeah.
doing anything in that space. So I was just it was a very, I don't know, it was different.
You were great at it. Do you feel like over the years, being in the space has made you less shy and timid? Or do you feel like...
Of course. I'm a different person. A lot of things, even when I went abroad to study and I stayed on my own, that itself changed me. And my parents also became a lot more confident of me. They were like, okay, now she can take care of herself. But then doing this, because we are constantly meeting new people and we're constantly we have to constantly talk to people. That's what we do for a living. So yeah.
Has it been a decade?
Yeah, it's been a decade, literally.
Any peaks of this decade? What are some moments you can look back at and say, I wanted that and I did that?
So many. But I remember there were... Pre-COVID specifically, there were times when I was constantly traveling, and growing up, that is all I wanted to do. I love traveling. So I felt so free and I felt so I don't know, it was great. The fact that I could travel for a living and meet so many people. So there are so many peaks, honestly. I can't pick one, but it's been a crazy, wild journey.
Any like highlight collabs you can think of where you're like, I wanted to work with that brand and I got to
so
work with
many.
them?
So my first time doing Fashion Week, an international one, was in New York with Maybelline, and that was really cool. Like I remember I was doing something with Gigi Hadid, and I'm like, whoa, what is my life? And even Nike, like I've had such a great journey with Nike. I did 2 half marathons with the brand. So those were really cool moments. But of course, I work with so many amazing brands, and the relationships that you make are more like precious versus like obviously brands. You work with so many brands, but the people that you meet through these brands really stick out.
Do you feel like that's something that's changed, like the way relationships are navigated in the creator world now, 10 years in, versus how it was when we started?
I mean, it's been a roller coaster now because, like, obviously, both of us have been around for a decade. And for me, my team, like my core team, Anisha and Priyanka, they've been with me since like literally day one. It's been 9 years since they've been a part of what I do. And like initially, we used to handle things one on one. It was either them talking to the client or I would get involved. But now there are so many people. Like, there's one agency, then there's like a third agency. So, a lot of times, there's so many events, you meet people, and you kind of don't have a face to the name because you're just like, you hear of them, but you don't really know of them. So, as I said, like, over the years, there are certain brands that I've worked with, and I kind of that journey was so special because I kind of built a relation with the people as well from the brand. But that doesn't happen anymore as much.
Yeah.
And I miss that because for me, if I'm putting my heart and soul into like creating content for a brand, I also want to know the people behind it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen as much anymore.
Yeah, I feel like I can relate to that because earlier it would also be like if I had a particular idea that I wanted to build as an IP with a brand, you could reach out to them and say, hey, this is what it is. Now you don't even know who's managing it. Agencies are changing.
I mean, you can still do that, but also like, don't you think there's so many of us now, right?
Yeah, and it's more transactional.
Yeah.
It's just become downright transactional.
And also, it's not just the content creators anymore, right? Like, there are content creators, there are actors, there are kids from the Bollywood industry who also are doing content.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's doing content. Like, models have to do content. And I'm not saying they are doing content. I'm saying they have to do content.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, to be relevant, no matter what you're doing, even if you're a chef or a doctor, you need to have social media presence.
Yeah.
And nowadays, everyone is like a client for the brand if they want to do like social media campaigns. So there's just like so many of us.
I actually feel like if you don't have social media, depending on whatever industry you're in now, it becomes actually difficult for you to find new clients, new business, no matter what your business is.
I always say Instagram is the new LinkedIn. Because like normally, like when if I'm hiring someone, right, I do like to go and look at their Instagram because it gives me more insight into like them as a person and like, if our kind of vision and thoughts meet. So yeah, I think Instagram in general is very important and social media presence is important for everyone.
Yeah, and one of the earlier conversations you and I were having even before we actually started recording was about how for relationship building, one of the things that has started happening a lot is people say yes to work on a very undervalued basis, right? Whether it's barters, whether it's charging half of what you should be charging, a lot of which ruins the market for everyone else. Where are you on that?
I was literally having this conversation yesterday with my team and it's sad. But also like, I don't know, it's a very confusing state, right? So everyone has priorities. And for a lot of them, this isn't what they do full time. For us, for the longest time, this was our job. Now for me, obviously, Arabella is what I do. And then this is happening, as and when. But then for a lot of them, it's just for fun. So for people attending events for free is okay. Whereas for me, it's a big no because like, you're kind of undervaluing yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a big battle and it is what it is, like people are okay to do free stuff nowadays and it is affecting us because brands have so many options and if there's someone doing something for free versus us charging an X amount, they would go for the free person, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it does mess a lot of things up, but if the brand really cares for the value you add and the weight that your name has, if they care for that, then they will hire you.
Yeah.
So it's a mixed feeling.
I actually landed up having a conversation with someone at an agency maybe sometime last month where they really wanted to have me on board for this luxury beauty brand, but they didn't want to pay. And it wasn't so much so, I guess, about, the products cost so much money. It was more about, but look at the name.
Yeah.
And I was like, they've just come into India. And people like me who have credibility in the beauty space would probably need to say, listen, but that needs to come at a price because this is what we do as a job.
The irony, na? Like, funny part is like, because I work in the luxury space a lot as a fashion creator and also beauty, right? And luxury is the space that pays the least.
Yeah.
which is ironical.
But what I find weird is those same brands that are actually not paying in India at all in the luxury space do pay influencers in the West, though.
But I'll tell you what, like I've really dug deep, and of course I have a lot of friends in that space, and I've kind of sat with them and we've understood why this works. Because also, like, let me tell you, the brand managers are also frustrated because for them it's a constant battle with the HQ, right? Because they are constantly first trying to prove India as a market. And we're still way behind in the luxury space, right? Like any country in the West, the kind of money they're spending versus India, it's still way behind. Like, why aren't the stores in India like multiplying with months and years? Because like people aren't buying as much just as yet. Because in India, buying luxury is not just fashion or accessories. It's gold, it's Indian designer wear, like, and people like to spend on things like weddings a lot more than, I don't know, it's a very like, people aren't spending as much in India.
It's
That's
a
the
layered
point.
thing.
So for them to get the budgets and for them to do stuff that they want to do for us,
Yeah.
they're not getting the approvals because it's a lot tougher. So I feel for them, like I understand, but also like if you want the job done, then you have to pay for it. That is also something that's as clear as that.
Yeah, I've had the same brand being pitched to me by an Indian agency on a barter, and the same literal identical deliverables and products come to me through an international agency with like matching my
You'll
rate
always
card.
see a difference. Like so many times I work with a brand directly and we're talking to the, HQ, or like we're talking to an office based out of say, Dubai. You'll always get paid for that.
Yeah.
And whatever you ask for. Versus when you're working with someone from India, because I don't know why that happens, but if you're dealing with someone in India for a luxury brand, there are no budgets.
Yeah.
Which is just confusing and sad and yeah.
Do you want to break down for anybody who doesn't know the influencer space that well what your business model is like?
Yeah.
What I mean by that is incoming business and outgoing business, and how do you manage that side of it? On the content side, and I'll come to Arabella as well.
Yeah,
of
on the
course.
content side. So, where do I begin? So, of course, like my main space for content is Instagram, and YouTube is something that I do because I love it, and it is a growing space for me. So, YouTube is more luxury focused, whereas Instagram is fashion, travel, beauty, lifestyle, fitness, a bit of everything, right? So, yeah, that is essentially what I do, and I have an internal team, and I also have an agency, and brands reach out to the team if they have a certain collaboration, if the brief works for us, then we say yes. Then we talk about budgets. If the budgets get approved, then great. Then it's the shoot based on the deliverables we're shooting. And we also, like, for anyone that's new, always remember, make sure you have like rules in place, like even for you to safeguard because a lot of times brands will say something and then they'll kind of go back on what they said. So always make sure everything is on email and everything is like set in terms of rules and signed. And so I've heard that the whatever. I mean, over the years, I've learned that. But yeah, so this is the model, right? Like we make content, we do videos. We basically have a media kit. So that basically states how much you charge for a reel, for stories, for, say, a carousel post. And then basis on that, the brand picks and you get paid.
Do you often...
And there's actually more, not just the posting, right? There's also travel.
Of course.
So there's just a lot. But
do you often tell a brand, though, that basis the campaign idea that you have, let's do X instead of Y? Like, are you actively involved in the business aspect?
Because, right now it's not just about you doing a post. You also want your post to perform.
Yeah.
Because the pressure of a post performing is also a lot more, right? I feel it. I'm telling you, like back in the day, you would do a video, you would like follow the brief to the T and that's about it, your job's done. But right now your job's not done. You also have to deliver numbers and that is stressful because you're constantly being, compared to a comedian who obviously has more views because they're doing comedy. Yeah. You're compared to a Bollywood person because of course Bollywood is king in India. So you're kind of competing with people from all walks of life. So my job is not just delivering the brief, it's also delivering numbers. So I try to be involved as much as possible. And if I feel it's not going to work on my page, I will be like, guys, this won't work. Do you want the views or not?
Yeah.
And then, so I try to be as involved as I can because I have to be true to what myself and like the content that I'm putting out there, I have to be proud of it. It has to represent me right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I literally was having a conversation with someone who was sitting at maybe 4 or 5 times my follower count on Instagram the other day. And we realized that we charge the same.
Yeah.
And this was a very candid conversation. Yeah. So I said, why are you undercharging like this? Because it doesn't make sense. You should get more money. And what she said was very interesting. She said that when a beauty brand comes to me, or you for that matter, they're coming to an audience that is already tuned in for beauty content. The intent of purchase or being influenced in a direction for a product is there. Her content is more lifestyle, is more comedy, is more, a little bit more varied. So she said, I don't necessarily have the pointed audience that is already looking to seek advice from me in that. And that, kind of struck a chord with me in my head. I was like, that's so true. The demographics that we're talking to are people who have come to us to know what to wear, to know what lipstick to buy. When they look at your outfits and then they see you wear Arabella, it seems on brand. And I would say the same for me if it was a lipstick or a blush. And I feel like that is a very layered observation for her to have, and so keep the pricing at that level also. Do you feel like where we're now, like you rightly said, we're competing with comedians, actors, and just anyone with a social media account? What do you think if there was someone new starting out, you would say that, okay, this is something you must keep in mind and not go crazy over to build that influence?
I would firstly say that stay true to yourself, right? And like build rules. Because people will walk over you if you don't set rules. People will expect you to do things for free. So for me, for example, I have a very strong and like very strict rule. We don't do things for free. Because I feel the minute I start doing things for free, brands will not value what I do and what I bring to the table. So no matter what, there will be tempting situations where like, you're like, oh my God, that launch is really exciting. Let me just do it for free. So you decide what's more important to you and what's not. For me, doing things where I'm getting paid and where I'm being valued. Even if it's not getting paid, there's a sense of value, I will do it. And the minute I'm feeling like I'm being undervalued or where people are just using me, I don't, for a lack of a better word, I will not do it.
Yeah. I'm asking you this because I feel like a lot of people tend to think when bloggers are saying, oh, we want to get paid, some people think we're getting massively underpaid, because I still see comments that talk about, is your husband funding this and is your father funding this? And I'm like, I'm sorry, but as creators, as unhumble this is going to make anybody sound, we don't need it. We get paid well enough. Is there something you can share as a ballpark of what has, let's say, your best month ever been as a content creator? A range.
So, I mean, I don't want to get into numbers, but there are times in a year, like there are specific months, say around like festive periods, I'm probably making enough for the whole year.
Yeah.
Like I'll probably make enough that month. I don't know. I don't want to get into numbers, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. And it's not a number that I thought growing up I would make. It's insane to kind of, and also we are like supporting our lifestyle and our lives, and like we have salaries to pay.
Yeah.
So if you can do all of that, you're obviously getting paid well.
From a statistics point,
much.
I strongly agree that I feel like between September to December, you make 70% of your year's worth of business.
Yeah, I agree.
And I feel like sometimes the public needs to decide whether we're getting massively underpaid or massively overpaid. Because sometimes I see outrage over it.
But I feel they're just delusional, and I feel like you can't like preach and like people can think what they have to once they, and also like people think our jobs are so easy even now, right?
Oof.
So it's okay. People can think what
if
they
they
have
could
to.
turn around and look at the number of people in this room right now.
Exactly.
What is the one thing that genuinely think comes easy to you? I'm not saying it's easy like in general, but comes naturally to you that you think might actually be really tough for somebody else to do?
I think now the way I make videos is like on autopilot, like editing videos. I can edit even without looking at the screen. Like I can do this.
You edit on your phone?
Yeah, depending the kind of reels I'm making, but if it's like one of those really candid, organic looking reel, I like to edit on my phone.
I'm so jealous. I cannot edit on my phone.
Yeah. So I can do it like super quick, and I'll take literally like I'll take maybe 3-4 minutes to edit the whole reel. So I think that is something that I've learned over the years.
The millennial in me, I can't do things on my phone that easily. I feel like even if I've shot something on my phone, I will airdrop it to my laptop and edit it in
I'm the opposite, in fact. If I have content on my laptop, I will airdrop it to my phone because I need everything like on my phone.
So are you editing yourself everything?
No. So if these are like brand campaigns, the team edits. But if it's organic content, which I thoroughly enjoy, very like easy impromptu content, that I will edit on my own.
Can I say something that you make look really easy?
Okay.
Because that was what I was thinking when I asked you, what is it that you make look? I think you make looking lifestyle, like fitness content. I'm sure it's a lot of work, obviously, but you pull it off so well that I think you really make it look very easy. Like if I
Really?
see something fitness content on your feed, it almost looks like it's coming naturally to you. Like it looks like you don't have to put much effort or much thought.
I'll tell you why. Because, you know, for example, if someone who you know doesn't work out will randomly post a reel to do with like workouts, you're not going to believe it. But I've always spoken about how important fitness and eating right is. Like I've had this journey with fitness, right? So I think it's more believable because people who have been following me for a while know that it's basically a part of my lifestyle. It's a very important part of my lifestyle. Maybe that's why.
That's so awesome because I feel like every time I've seen you post about fitness, it really does feel very on brand. It genuinely does. Like just the way I feel like you said, you do a lot of candid sit down videos.
Yeah.
I feel like I saw you post a bag unboxing a couple of days ago. Did I?
Yeah.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
Getting a quota bag is very, very cool.
Yeah, exactly. And the kind of shit I got for that, like, so honestly,
Wait,
people.
what?
I'll tell you what. I didn't see that coming, but I should have. Obviously, people won't get it, and I understand. There's so much more, there's so many important things in life. If you like, the bag isn't important. I get it. But for me, it's important. I've worked so hard all my life. And if I'm like buying something for myself, it's okay. And I want to share it with people who care about buying a bag from Hermes.
But I'm so confused. What is
Yeah.
the issue here?
So people were like, you could have used that money for a bigger cause. But I'm like, guys, it's my money. If I want to treat myself, it should be okay. And there are so many people who kind of have questions about getting a bag from Hermes because it's not a
easy.
usual store
Yeah.
that you just walk into and pick up a bag. So it was for me, like, it was almost like kind of educating people on like how to do it in India because India works a lot differently, right? Like it's still new.
Yeah.
We don't have very many MS stores in India. So my like I was trying to do that, but then the kind of comments I got and the kind of shit I got, I was just like, I should have seen that coming.
Do you get that a lot for posting luxury content?
No. Actually, surprisingly, I don't get a lot of shit online. Like I'm one of those creators,
Yeah.
like I want to like touch all the wood in here.
Yeah.
That I don't get like trolled as much, but like every now and then there are certain comments, right?
Because
But the maximum comments that I get though is that I come like my, everything that I do is either taken care of by my husband or my parents, which I'm just like, guys, I've like the last time I took money from my parents for anything was maybe when I was 21, and after that I've always paid for myself.
But this is what I mean. I feel like on one hand, they're
Yeah.
thinking we don't get paid enough to clearly
Yeah.
we're taking money from
Yeah.
the men in our life
Yeah.
always. And then on the other hand, you think that we get overpaid for what we do. So I'm like, can you just pick a lane?
I
Just
don't
pick
think
one
there's
lane.
anything known as overpaid. Like the best part about our industry is that you set your value. Like you
Yeah.
ask for what you think you should get. But yeah, like you don't like what is overpaid? Like is anyone getting overpaid?
And I good point.
Yeah.
I also feel like sometimes they think that we own every single thing we're wearing because like
See, one thing I have to point out is that sure, we do come from privilege. Right? Like that is not like I'm not denying that. But then I could have very well taken that privilege and not worked hard and just like forever lived on my parents'
princess
husband's
life.
money. Exactly. But that's not the case. I've slogged my butt off and so have you, and which is why you're sitting here. So
Yeah.
there's a huge difference, and I wish people acknowledge that. Privilege is fine, but then making use of that privilege and making something more out of it is very different.
I think privilege is one thing. Finding ways to multiply your privilege is a completely
Yeah.
different thing, and I feel like we've done that
Exactly.
essentially.
Exactly.
But I want to kind of highlight something over here, especially from the luxury space and just fashion content. Let's say in general, a lot of times people just assume everything we're wearing is our clothes we own, and I don't think enough people know about sourcing because sometimes I run a page where I thrift a lot of my old wardrobe pieces, and everything I put is obviously for people around my size.
Yeah.
Of course, accessories, shoes,
Yeah.
those kind of things are for everyone. But people are like, "Oh, can you put up that dress?" And they'll DM me a post of mine from like 3 years ago, and I'm like, "Wait, that was sourced."
Yeah.
So if you had to break down your sourcing process, because everyone has a slightly different
Yeah.
sourcing process, how would you explain that to someone where you're like, I don't own everything?
So literally, guys, you need to realize we're doing like an event at least thrice a week.
Yeah.
And you can't possibly like have clothes for that many events and that many shoots. And also every event and every shoot has a brief. So like, for example, we're doing something for this product and they expect you to wear like a sea green dress, very specific. So where do you get that from? Obviously, if you have it in your wardrobe, sure. But then also you can't constantly repeat an outfit because you're creating content as as crazy as that sounds. So we're always sourcing clothes, which I think is very sustainable. We're not buying as much. So yeah, I have a team personally set in place for sourcing. We get in touch with PR agencies that manage other brands, and you tell them what you're looking for. They'll send you lookbooks. You pick from the lookbook. You give them your size. They'll make it. I mean, they'll alter it as per that. You wear it. Give them a deliverable, whatever that may be, and you return it.
You give it back.
Yeah,
We don't hold
yeah,
on
yeah.
to everything.
Yeah, basically.
We don't hold on to everything. And I
Yeah.
feel like more people need to understand that about
Yeah.
our job. It is very sustainable.
Yeah.
Like you rightly
I mean, if you
pointed out.
think about it, yeah, no, we're not buying as much. Obviously, I do love shopping, but then I'll always end up if I go shopping, you'll always see me buying tank tops and jeans and like t-shirts. I'm that girl. So I love my basics. And then if it's like a very hectic dress and I know I'm only gonna wear it once, I'd rather just source it.
Do you feel like sometimes sourcing also these days has changed a little bit? I'm coming from the POV that when we used to source earlier, brands would just be happy to be featured in the blog post or on
Yeah.
in a reel,
Yeah.
or they would not ask, is it going to be a carousel? Of late, what I'm noticing is a pattern over the last maybe 2 years,
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
They want to make sure you're sharing high-res images. They want to use the images on a website.
I feel it's also because a lot of people have misused this, right? A lot of people will wear it and then not give them the deliverables. So, like, just to safeguard themselves, and they have to like set rule, because I have a clothing brand. So that happens a lot with us as well, right? So we have to be very selective with firstly who we're giving our clothes to, because you know what, whoever wears your clothes, that person is setting the brand image for you. So you have to be very selective. And after that, you know, you have to make sure that they're kind of representing your brand, right? So I think it's only fair for a brand to expect things to be done in a certain way. 'Cause-
I feel like when you're expecting the deliverables
Yeah.
still there, just
Yeah.
coming from my POV
Yeah.
here, and of course we can
Yeah.
have different opinions on this, it's great. But sometimes I'm like, I want to film a reel, you
Yeah.
know, like a cool get ready
Yeah,
with
yeah.
me. But brands are like, we want high-res images, we
Images.
want to be able to boost the post.
That's
and we want
probably
to...
for performance marketing, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like it's not a paid association,
Because
right?
normally, if you're allowing a brand to use your photo for performance marketing, you're going to charge for it. So
Correct.
maybe they don't realize that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
so
why they get
my
confused.
teams really had to sit down
Yeah.
and be like, okay, these are the things we can
Yeah.
do for you.
Yeah.
We'll give you the images,
Correct.
and you know, you can tag the creator if you want to use it wherever. But when it comes to performance marketing, when it comes to
Yeah.
more nuanced business
Yeah.
things like website usage, those are the kind of things you can't do on a
Yeah,
sourcing
yeah.
basis.
Like imagine randomly like going on the street and finding yourself on a hoarding without permission. It's almost that, right? But it's on social media.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you need certain kind of permissions for certain things.
I've had that experience a
Yeah.
few times where
Yeah.
brand has used
A lot of times.
content
yeah.
without permission.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you combat that?
But also, because I own a clothing brand, any person wearing your outfit versus a model wearing your outfit performs like 10x better for a brand, which is why they really want a creator to be seen wearing their clothes and they want the photos. So I get it. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the creator side, how do you navigate something like that when you've seen someone misusing your content?
We politely first get in touch. We explain them how things work. If they understand, great. If not, then I feel we learn, and then next time we kind of try to set our rules. We kind of just add another rule to the list.
Yeah, for the terms and
Yeah,
conditions
exactly,
and the
terms and
do's and
conditions,
don'ts.
exactly.
Do you feel like the perks in our job outweigh the pits of the job?
Not at all, yeah. Like our job is tough. People don't see it. Like I don't remember the last time I took a vacation, Anam. Like even though I go on holidays, I feel holidays are my time to shine, and I'm constantly creating content and I feel so bad. So like my husband and I have set boundaries now. If we're going for like 4 days, the last day is camera free and phone free. But so, I mean, again, coming back to your question, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Like we're constantly, our minds are like tuned that way. We're constantly creating content. We're constantly thinking about how to make this reel work. So
Yeah.
like any other job, this one's not easy.
And you're doing 2 jobs. I also want to talk about Arabella
Yeah.
because I feel like bloggers, creators, influencers, God, we have so many terms now
Yeah.
to define the industry. Going into a brand space is so interesting. And I feel like you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
How
So,
many
I
years?
mean, fun fact, I actually started Arabella before content creation.
What?
Yeah. So after I came back from London, I did my master's there. After I came back, I wanted to start a clothing brand. I did that. We actually had a store at Phoenix. Market
remember
City.
that.
Exactly. So we started with that. And then content creation happened after that. But then it also took off for me because like back then, this didn't exist as a career. But then the year that I started, it really started picking up. Like people started doing it more seriously as a job. And I started making money out of it. I started traveling. So then Arabella kind of took a back seat because I was traveling so much, I wasn't able to give it time. And then in COVID, I was able to give the brand a lot more time. So we kind of restarted, rebranded, and like started from scratch pretty much. So yeah.
And now you have your husband working with you.
So
on it.
Siddharth joined the business after we got married because I really needed a numbers guy. I can't do numbers. So he handles the operations and logistics and numbers, and I take care of the creative bit, the marketing, design, and all of that. And we have a lovely team in place. But yeah, Sid and I are kind of heading it.
Can you break down for us, like, let's say, for example, there was somebody who was looking to start their own fashion brand and was a creator looking to start their own fashion brand. How do you divide your teams? Are there any resources you feel work across both?
So I feel firstly, always make sure that as a founder, don't try to do it all. Like hire smart. Because you can't possibly do it all. Like, kind of understand what are your strong points. So for me, I know I'm a very creative person, so I'm gonna be really good at that. But I can't do numbers. I can't do operations. So I'm glad my husband, was able to come on board. So similarly, figure out someone who can do stuff for you, even if it's not a family member. Maybe hire, right? So that I think is a very important thing. And also do something different. Like don't try to rip off what others are doing because people will know. So if for a product to work, because things are so competitive lately, for a product to really work, it has to be different. So, I mean, we do affordable resort wear. And when we started, there weren't very many brands doing it. So that sets us apart.
Do you feel like sometimes work spills over to home? Because that happens with Jerry and me so often.
All the time. And then sometimes Siddharth and I have to be like, okay, enough. Like we're literally talking about Arabella and like going to bed. And that's not great, but it's okay. We're just very passionate about what we're doing. And I think now is the time. We're in our early 30s and yeah, we have goals and dreams to build. So it's okay.
And I feel like it's great for your son to grow up watching his parents work.
I actually grew up like that, right? My parents have been like work partners all their lives. They go as Bharat and Doris.
Yeah.
So I grew up seeing that. And for me, that was absolutely normal. So
they also have a beauty brand.
Yeah, Bharat and Doris.
Why didn't you never think of joining them?
I did. So initially, before I went to London, I tried working with my parents. But my parents, I'm so lucky that, they let me do what I really like and they let me follow my dreams. And I was really drawn towards fashion. So I felt like I wanted to do something in that space. I didn't see myself getting into hair and makeup. So I did an internship at Grazia. I assisted a couple of stylists on ad film sets and celebrity styling. And I figured that isn't for me as well. But I still wanted to do something in fashion. So I just followed my dreams. And I was lucky enough that my parents let me.
You and I have the inverse story, by the way, because my parents are both also who work together, but in fashion.
Oh.
And I landed up going the beauty way.
Oh, yeah.
And your parents were in beauty
exactly.
and you landed up taking the fashion way. Yeah. But does it sometimes come down to you needing to choose priority between like Arabella or content, and how do you navigate
now
that?
It's very, very... So firstly at Arabella, we have a very, strong team. So things are normally taken care of. But of course, I have my set of roles and jobs and duties to do through the day. So it just depends. My week is set. I know what's going to happen in the coming week. So on certain days, I'm shooting all day. So I'll make up for it the next day at Arabella. So it really depends.
You want to break down your team format for us from content side as well, Arabella side? Just so that people get context on how a creator can really run operations across everything.
So in my content side of things, I have two managers, Anisha and Priyanka. They both have their own set of roles. And then I have an in-house content team as well. So they help me script things, they help me ideate, they help me shoot. And then we work with freelance photographers and videographers who shoot and edit for me as well. What else? And then I have my finance team. That's very important. So that's pretty much my team from the content side of things. I don't know if I'm missing out on anything. And then at Arabella, we have, from my side of things, we have the design team. I have someone that heads design. I have a production manager as well because we manufacture in-house. Then we have interns. We have someone who looks after our social media. So that's my side of people. And then for Siddharth, there's the finance team, there's logistics, there's customer care. Wow. Yeah. And then when we're shooting campaigns, we have like freelance photographers, videographers.
And then agencies
directors.
Also, right?
Not agencies. We work with freelance people. But
not even on the content side?
No. We have someone in-house.
Okay.
That works better. We've tried working with agencies, but that doesn't work in our favor because it's very like robotic, I would say.
Yeah.
So at least for now, we have someone in-house because that works better for us.
I've tried the agency thing both on the creator side as well as on Verified. And I feel like there's, like you said, actually, you said it very correctly, very robotic. There's something very 1, 2, 3,
like
4.
I don't see the love and care as much. Like the kind of love and care your team would pour into the page versus someone who's just doing it because that's a part of the list.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Do you feel like there's a brand or a goal that you're really working towards that you're kind of seeing in your vision board for the next 5 years?
You know, I keep messaging Gabby from Demi by Gabriella. Like, she's one of my, I don't know if she even knows this, but like, she's one of my inspirations. Like, she's a powerhouse of a woman. And I've literally seen Demi's journey over the years, like the kind of brand, like the way she built the brand, right? And now she's killing it. She's selling at Selfridges, she's at Harrods, she's at Unas in Dubai. So, and Revolve.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my inspiration, and I'm hoping to get there at some point. But like, she's killing it. Like, that's a brand that I feel so proud to know that it comes from India, because like people from all over the world love to wear her clothes. So I aspire to be somewhere in that space over the.
Her clothes are very on brand for you also. I've seen you wear a lot of
Yeah, it's very sexy and I love it.
Yeah.
And it's very different, right? Like, again, as I said, it's a unique product. No one else is doing sexy clothes like her.
Yeah.
So
I also feel like in India, when you're doing sexy clothes, they have to be done in a very specific way. I don't know how else to explain
and
it.
also, like, you know, when a woman is designing for a woman, you know, like when the clothes make you look good and make you feel good, like that's when you know you've won as a brand. And that's my goal for Arabella as well. Like, when someone wears Arabella, I want them to feel good about their body and, like, you know, feel sexy in it.
Is Arabella a bootstrap brand?
Yeah.
And do you feel like you guys want to go offline?
No, actually, because in fact, we started offline first before we went online. And then we saw the change during COVID when we finally started focusing our energies online. And then we actually shut our store during COVID because it didn't make sense then. Online is like the kind of opportunities you get online versus offline is crazy, because like a lot of brands do pop-ups as well, and for us that model doesn't work just yet, because the kind of money you can make online with spending very little versus spending so much on a whole infrastructure offline. I mean, of course, eventually we do want to open up a store, but as of now we're bootstrap, as I said, and like we're just focusing on our operations online.
I feel like as creators, we also have that ready potential audience out there that is organically asking you, what are you wearing?
So funnily, like that was the whole reason for me to start content creation. Because as I said, Arabella started first and I was like, wait, I can maybe create an audience for Arabella. And that was the strategy back then, and it really worked out in my favor.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I'm so glad it's working out. So we have this segment and it's called Yay or Nay. I'm going to throw a couple of things at you and you tell me whether you feel like it is a yay moment or a nay moment. Collaborating with brands on a barter basis.
It really depends. Like, I'm not against it, yeah. But like, as I said, even if it's a barter, if it's still adding value to me, okay, it really depends. But mostly a nay, actually. Come on.
Repeating looks on Instagram and not just real life.
Of course, always.
Doing viral trends on your socials just for the heck of it. Wearing a designer who does great clothes but has not been very nice to you in person.
Never. I would never do it.
90-day payment periods.
It is what it is.
Posting without filters.
Yeah, always.
Responding to haters in the comments.
I don't do it. Never. I've never engaged with haters as such.
Labubu's.
You know, I actually got onto this Labubu trend way before it was a thing. Like back in the day, a couple of years ago, this thing called Carlito. It was from Fendi, Karl Lagerfeld bag charm.
Okay.
So I had gone nuts for that, and I had that, and I had my moment with that. So I didn't have to like get back into the whole Labubu thing. So
I find them
did it.
very ugly.
Yeah, even the Carlito wasn't a very good looking one, but it is what it is. It looked like a dead squirrel.
Wearing something just because it's trending.
No. I mean, I like to try trends, but I have to like, I kind of like to make it my own. So
De-influencing through your content.
De-influencing.
Like, don't buy this because
No, I would not do. I like people to have their own opinions. So like, just because I don't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't like it.
Tuning into gossip about yourself or anybody else online.
No, there isn't a lot about me though. I'm like very boring that way.
It's good, nah?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, I'm happy.
So we have some looks of yours that we've pulled up, which are your most liked looks on Instagram.
Okay.
I want you to tell us where you were going, if you remember who you were wearing, and if you would still wear that look or not.
Okay, let's go. Ooh, this one. Is it one of the most liked ones?
Yeah. We've only pulled the most liked ones.
Oh, so this is actually fairly recent. This was from my brother-in-law's wedding in Bali. And it was a Sangeet. And yeah, I would definitely wear that again. It was such a...
I love
It
this.
was so comfortable, that look. Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is in Rome again last year, and I would definitely wear this again. This is very on brand with me.
Is it Arabella?
It's not Arabella, but again, it's another really, really lovely brand. I think it's July issue, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I love this look of yours. This is from the Emily in Paris
Yes,
event.
this is again from the same trip in Rome, and this is Shivan and Naresh, a brand I absolutely love. They're absolutely killing it. So yeah, I would wear this in a heartbeat again. Yeah, again from the Rome trip. This is a look from Papa Don't Preach. This isn't actually something I would wear a lot. Like, I'm not someone who wears a lot of prints and colors like all together. I like my neutrals way more. But for this specific event, it did work because Emily in Paris is very like over the top and eccentric.
Lots of Rome popping.
Yeah. It was actually a really fun night, I have to say. It was so much fun. And this is from Falguni and Shane. Again, people that I love and adore, they're killing it. And I love wearing their clothes. Shivan and Naresh again from a holiday last year for my husband's birthday in Rajasthan. And I love it. Just made me feel so sexy and comfy, which is what I love about fashion.
I love this look of yours.
Thank you. This is very like this is right after I gave birth, like a couple of months after. So I was still in my postpartum phase. So this is, I think, from the Abu Sandeep show last year.
You look fab for
Thank
postpartum
you.
over here. Wow. I think this is our last one, and I think this is probably my favorite look of
Okay.
yours.
Ooh, yeah. This is again postpartum, actually. I was still staying at my mom's house when I did this shoot because I was with her for 2.5 months after I delivered. And this is a shoot that I did with Jimmy Choo. The Jimmy Choo team had flown down to India from London and they kind of took care of the whole shoot. And I loved it. It was such a vibe.
Thank you so much for
you.
being such a sport, looking back at all your looks and also sharing everything that you have in this
Yeah.
video. I had a great time chatting with you. I feel like people will take away from this that there's so many more layers to being a content creator in this day and age, how much it has changed over the last decade. And I hope they get to know you better through this video.
Yeah. I had so much fun, Anam.
Thank you. I'm
Thank
glad you
you.
did.
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy too. Before we end the episode, I want to ask you to quickly just plug yourself. What are all your handles? Where can they follow you?
I love that.
And your brand.
So let's start with my brand. My brand's Arabella. You can see our website. It's www.arabella.com and Arabella Official on Instagram. And for me, it's Juhi Godambe on Instagram, and I'm also on YouTube. So yeah.
Yay! Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.